Okay, so cabbage, purple cabbage. And in the Hebrew version, I'll do the white cabbage. So cabbage is healthy. And today we're going to ferment cabbage. And fermentation is also very healthy. And I noticed that people are a little afraid of fermentation because they are afraid of germs. And even more so in days that, you know, we've been flooded with information about epidemic and viruses, and like we get so scared to touch anything. Everything is like needs to be distant and no touching and washing your hands all the time. So yes, wash your hands as much as you feel that is necessary, and maybe more than the usual. But we are not. It's better to not just get afraid about everything, and especially not of fresh vegetables. I think there's a debate now about is fresh vegetables, are they safe for us? And we can talk about it maybe in a different time. Right now I want to talk really mostly about this scale between fear and intuition. We said yesterday, we talked a little bit about intuition, so this will go with us, I think, along the whole series. We're waking up our the sleeping beauty, the sleeping intuition. It got depressed by our society, our culture, and it's considered dangerous these days to deal with food or herbs or anything around us without some expert voice. And in general, people these days prefer to just buy the packaged food because it's considered to be safe. So I want to steer away from that concept and back to the household and the productivity and like active life of making our own food, and particularly these days, today, making our own fermented food. I'm in the kitchen of CityTree. So maybe it's noticeable and maybe not. It's not super sterile. I know there are germs around me. It's okay. There are germs around us anyway, and if they're not, actually the environment is considered in our minds much less safe. I'm taking my knife and I'm starting to work. So I take the bottom piece, this piece, and this goes to the compost. And then a few leaves, the outer leaves, fall really easily, right? So I take them out. Those you can consider more dirty, and if you want, you can throw them away to the compost. I know that there haven't been any use of poisonous materials in this farmer's place, so I feel safe, but you really work with your intuition. If you don't feel safe, you can throw them away. I keep them, and we will have use for them. I will scale the cabbage. That's to calculate how much salt I need. We're doing fermentation with salt today, and so I weigh it, and I see that it is 1 kilo, around 1 kilo, a little bit more. So what we're using for the calculation of salt, we use maybe between 1.5% to 5% of salt to vegetable. And I will go for 2% this time, so about 20 grams of salt. And then I start to cut my cabbage. So there's all kinds of ways to cut it. I usually go, you can decide if you like small pieces or big pieces, it all works. I like to do like 4 parts and then go like that. Okay? And then it goes into a bowl. And the big pieces I'll put aside. And as I said, there will be, okay. So the cabbage is cut. And you can see that the bowl is pretty full with the cabbage. And now I'm going to take my 20 grams of salt and just add it and start working on the cabbage. So yes, you can just spread the salt in between the leaves, the cut leaves of the cabbage, and just wait, maybe for half an hour, I don't know how long. And slowly, what's happening is that the salt is taking the water, the water that are in the vegetable out of the vegetable, and it will happen by itself. However, at some point I read a description of a Korean guy talking about his Korean grandmother who was doing kimchi. Kimchi is a type of cabbage fermented with a lot of spices. It's really, it can be really, really spicy. And he said his grandmother would do that for long minutes until the cabbage was ready. And he says that she called it hugging the cabbage. And I really liked that concept. So what I'm doing right now is I'm hugging the cabbage. There's a special way that I'm doing it, right? I'm putting my hands underneath and then like flipping it over and push. So first of all, I'm sure it's really nice for my fingers and hands, and this whole action is quite meditative, especially when I'm not being filmed. And secondly, there's an influenza going on here. I influenced the cabbage. So this got approved by a dear friend. His name is Uri Meir Chizik, who researched the local food traditions of this area. And also he researched a lot about germs and fermented food. So he says that when we're doing those actions, the germs from our bodies, especially through the breathing, of course, come into the cabbage and influence it or any other vegetable that we are working on. And that's actually good. Isn't that surprising? It is good. So the cabbage gets the breath, I guess you can say breath print of the woman who is doing it. And that's like a family thing. So if the grandmother is doing the cabbage, it will be different than another house and another grandmother and another cabbage. I think it's time to close up again because it's already really changing. It's, I don't know if you'll get it in the camera, but it's already kind of much less volume. The water came out, the leaves are starting to kind of connect with each other and become compact, and that's what we're looking for. We're looking for, you know, there's water already in the bottom of the bowl, and slowly, and it's just very nice sensation to work with the cabbage and feel it happens. Plus, imagine, no camera, but a few women in a room doing cabbage. And then this work of like doing this for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, it's not like, oh no, now 10 minutes to just do like that. I'll just do it faster. No, it's like, I'm here in the kitchen and I have company and we talk about life. And time passes really nicely when our hands are being busy with something, and we had a nice time together, and at the end each one has a few jars with cabbage that they take home. It's really nice. So, after a few minutes, something really amazing happened in the bowl. And the liquid, if you can see, it's like really out. And it's very purple. Can be used also for dyeing textiles and wool. So, the cabbage is ready to be pressed into jars. And before I do that, there are all kinds of additive I can use, like different spices. So the spice I like best for fermented cabbage is kimel. I think kimel is a word, right? Like in more than one language, we call it kimel. And at this point, I can really put with my intuition as much as I want. And that's fennel seeds. And I have fresh black pepper that I'm going to also put a few of those. Also, I have foraged mustard, right, from the past few days of foraging. I'm also going to put some of those. And there, of course, it's endless what you can add. It's depending what you have at hand and what you feel like you want to do. A little bit of mixing in the spices, and we're ready for the last bit. So the last bit is pressing the cabbage into the jar. There are special tools for fermenting cabbage. They are recommended. I mean, if you want, you can get a special ceramic container that is really made for that. I'm showing the simplest way to do it. Anybody, we all have access to jars. So it's really, really easy. The important part is the pressing. I'm really pressing it in. In this stage, still liquid comes out. And what we want to create in the jar is anaerobic conditions. This fermentation happens without oxygen. So what we are developing here on purpose is anaerobic germs, and mostly the lactoacids. The lactoacids are very, very beneficial germs for our guts and for our general health. And what they do is as it ferments, they keep creating vitamins and enzymes and all kinds of goodies that are really, really good. So the germs themselves are good for us, and also what they create in their life process in the jar is all beneficial. So what we get is, first of all, preservation. This can stand for many months without getting spoiled, and we don't need to refrigerate it. It's also a very, very big advantage. Imagine a world without electricity. I don't know why I said it right now. It's really good to know how to preserve food without being dependent on electricity. So that's we can see that 1 kilo of a cabbage is exactly the size of that jar. It's a very, very common jar. A lot of products are being sold in this jar. And it's nice to keep the jars and reuse them, of course. And the liquid that I have left in the bowl, I will put it in. And it overflows, and that's what I want. I want it to overflow. Now I'll put it in. And remember the big pieces, the less attractive pieces of the cabbage? I'm going to put them on the top to press a little more. Like, I really want no oxygen, and I want that if there's any exposure of the cabbage to oxygen, it's not pieces that are dear to my heart. Like, it's okay for me to, when I open it in a month, it has to stand for a month. I can take those top pieces and throw them to the compost, and then underneath, for sure, I have anaerobic conditions for this whole time. And so the right process will flourish there. So I push more than what seemed logical, right? I keep putting more and more. And then I take the lid, and again, it's pressing. It's pressing it to close it. Yeah. Okay. Now it's completely pressed. The water came out as I was pressing it, so it's really anaerobic. So the last step is to store it in a dark and dry place at home and store it inside some kind of bowl, because as the process continues in the jar for the next months, water might come out. So to prevent mess, I'm just putting it in another bowl. And in CityTree we have this cupboard, and once you start making fermentation, you really want to find in your house the pantry, the place where you can store your fermenting friends. So this goes into the closet, and I think I can find here one that was made a month ago. So now you can see that on top we have some of those leaves that are not best, and we can definitely take them off and get rid of them. And then I use my senses, I use my smell, and in a few moments also my taste, my sense of taste, to check the cabbage. It looks amazing, it looks really great. Is this one. So when we start eating cabbage, it's important not to actually avoid touching it with our fingers, or touching it with a spoon or anything that we put in our mouth, because it has the perfect combination of germs at this point, and we don't want to spoil it. And so this is my white cabbage, actually Alon's cabbage from a month ago. Alon did this one. And of course, in the bowl that I'm eating from, it's really okay to touch it. And if something is left, we keep it in the bowl. We don't put it back in the jar. So now at this point, I will put it in the fridge, because now it's open and another process starts and can spoil the cabbage. So it will be in the fridge. And I think that's it. One more thing. Those water are salty cabbage water. Definitely a good addition for today's salads for everybody. This is like a nice source of salt, or we can combine it into a salad dressing. So don't throw it away. Right, so that was me again, and it was a fermented cabbage, and I wish you good health. And as usual, we're here, and you can get in touch if you have any questions. So goodbye for now. Thank you.